Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Autopsy with Maddie P. I'm your host, Maddie P. Girl. What is cracking queen? Did you miss me? I missed you. Last week? Are you guys liking the every other week situation? There's gnats in my house. It is South Carolina summer. Thank you. Last week we gave a little therapy session, a little life update, and I promised that this week we would talk more about some sobriety based topics. I'm actually kind of excited about today. I can't lie. And for warm-ups, I don't have anything specific I'm talking about. I have been really disconnecting, girl. I changed my work schedule, and actually this week I thought that I was going to be freaking out because I switched to doing morning shifts, and then I'm starting another job too, and I had to do both one day, and there was things going on, and I've been having a delightful time. And that is because, stick with me, I'm about to say the cheesiest shit ever, but me and my life's purpose that I've been thinking about. And then I was like, wait, my purpose is life. My purpose is to live. Fuck a life's purpose. Am I right? Porpoise. Am I right? So that really has been in the frontal lobe of me this past week, and it's allowing me to just disconnect and enjoy my time and my life again. And I forget how important it is to spice things up. I'm a scheduled queen. I'm a type A princess, and I needed things to be out of sorts to realize that I can still be organized and enjoy my life and things be different every day. So it's been a really fun adjustment, and I've had a fantastic week thinking that I was going to have a traumatizing week, and I didn't. So anyways, today, like I said, I've been disconnected. I've been working and just being outside and hanging out with my friends and my boyfriend and doing what I do best, which is giggling. Thank you. Thank you. The attitude is vanished from the conversation, which I'm really happy about because the attitude was booting and tooting. She was tooting this week, last week. So I thought for warm-ups, we would do a little game or something. I don't know. Should we do would you rather questions? I'm only going to do a few, okay? I promise. But I don't know. Why the fuck not? I got to Google some real quick. And our topic of conversation does have 6 pages, but we'll see how long it actually is today. Would you rather questions? These are literally stupid. Hold on. Would you rather dance every time you hear music or sing along every time you hear a song? Sing. The fuck? These are stupid. Would you rather... Okay, this is a good one. Would you rather wake up naked in a forest 5 miles from home or in your underwear at work? Anything away from work. I'd rather be in a forest. Why the fascination? Whenever I look up would you rather or play it, it's people are like, would you rather be naked? Would you rather have nails in your asshole or die? And it's okay, maybe you need to see a therapist. People that come up with that shit are always a little off. Would you rather accidentally like an old photo of your ex on Instagram? I've never been with anyone before, my current boyfriend, so I don't know what they're talking about. Y'all, me being in love is kind of disgusting. Would you rather own a car with a horn that plays YMCA or a car with your kid's favorite cartoon character? I don't have a kid. I have Ellie, but apparently she looks so cute right now. All right, this is a lot less fun than I thought it would be. I'll do one more. Ew. For example, who comes up with this shit? Would you rather look at your mom's internet search history or your dad's? Would you rather give up your favorite food forever or give up sex? I'm a libido sister. I'm a libido girl. I think I would give up my favorite food. I'm trying to take down the raunchiness of this podcast. It's only the warm-ups. Then we get into talking and I'm pretty crisp. If I'm using a cuss word, it's in order to emphasize something because I'm fucking saying something. But the warm-ups that was a bad question to choose considering that I'm trying to get better. Would you rather give up all drinks except water or give up eating anything that was cooked in an oven? They're just saying shit now. Would you rather have to work the most miserable job imaginable for a year or die 1 year earlier? Die a year earlier. And honestly, I've been thinking about this. Maybe we'll do an episode on this the next few weeks. Let me make sure my timer's running so I don't talk to y'all for 2 hours. Okay, we're good. I have an unhealthy fear of death. Now, I have talked about before, I had a really big fascination with death and afterlife. And that's just part of who I am. When I was a kid, I would run into my mom's room I'd be like literally 6. And I'm like, what happens when we die? What the fuck? Where'd you get this kid? Because what the fuck was that? And I don't know. I think recently I've just been thinking about like not death, but there was basically a few people that died kind of like around me. Not like close like friendships. One was like a step grandfather of mine, and one was somebody that I know via church. And, obviously heartbreaking and sad that these people passed away. It was very, very sad. And it happened back to back. But it just got me thinking about the whole death situation. And then I had a dream that my partner, not a lesbian, that my boyfriend died. No, he had a dream. I don't remember. And I couldn't fall back to sleep because I was like, what if he dies? And I think it'd be more heartbreaking. Like, I don't know if I'm necessarily scared to die or if I'm more so scared of the people around me dying. And I used to like randomly start crying thinking about my sister dying. Like, I would call her and be like, everything's okay. And I'd be like snotting on the other end. Or like my parents, like, everyone's fine. And I think that has to do with my OCD thinkings, and my OCD fascinations used to revolve really bad around death and my weird relationship with pain that I, thank God, no longer have. I think back to who I used to be and I'm like, how did she live like that? Self-destructive, odd relationship with pain. Very interesting. Very interesting. Don't know how we got here. And already the topics are what I didn't want them to be. If you see green flashes, it's because I'm wearing a swimsuit and I will be swimming after this. Okay, I'm going to move on because, like, clearly there's nothing else for me to say. I don't feel warm. If I stumble on my words, I stumble on my words. Guten Morg, sister. Bringing the TikTok in. Guten Morg, sister. My favorite hookers. Today, what are we talking about? I'm being so goofy. I need to stop. Log in. Today, I wanted to talk about loneliness and sobriety. So, obviously, there's a few facets so we can talk about loneliness and sobriety. As every week I say, there's several facets we can talk about things. Today, I wanted to talk about it in the lens of getting sober and like losing people and feeling lonely in your choices pursuing sobriety versus loneliness in general that alcoholics and addicts suffer from. This, and people in general, but alcoholics and addicts tend to suffer from like this deep loneliness where we feel as though we can't be understood because we're lunatics, basically. And that's a whole other topic of its own. But the point of this podcast also is for people to heal and for people who maybe who don't have a problem, but want to divulge their healing and or sobriety and or ways of life. So today I'm going to like de-influence the fact that you're going to be lonely and that your socialization is going to be fucked up if you choose sobriety, whether you have a problem or don't have a problem. And because I think the whole big scary conversation of loneliness whilst pursuing sobriety, basically, I think keeps people from getting sober and or causes them to drink again. So today we will also divulge a little bit how I trusted the process and how that kind of ensued itself. And I am obviously talking to everybody today, but specifically young people, because I was 24, when I got sober. It feels like yesterday. Sometimes I'm like, I don't drink, and I trip out about it. Different conversation for a different time, but I'll be like at work and I'm like carrying drinks. I'm like, I don't drink. I don't know. Maddie thought that needs to be erased and does not need to be divulged. Anywho, getting sober young is really daunting because you're like, am I going to alienate myself that much from society? Because our society is based around drinking and partying and going out. And I also didn't understand, and if this puts this a little bit into perspective for you, that 22, 23 is kind of the cap of going out. And in my adolescent alcoholic mind, you go out for forever. And especially in Charleston, you see people, especially food and bev, you see people that are older constantly going out. But if we think about it in reality, like partying is such an like a small adolescent piece of our life. And it does come a point where we naturally are going to start outgrowing that. And I realized I couldn't naturally start outgrowing that on my own. And that's when it became a problem for me, when I couldn't step into adulthood. Because it's all fun and games when you're a kid and nobody has shit to say to you because you're doing coke in the bathroom. You're supposed to be doing coke in the bathroom. Nobody's supposed to be doing coke. Drinking presents everything as a huge facade in life. And in reality, me being a drunk piece of shit and me when I am drunk is exactly what did alienate me from the rest of society. For me personally, looking back, I was really lucky to even fucking have friends. And I was chasing this social life and I had to be in the middle of everything and be that party girl that like I always was. And I think it's hard because it was a piece of me throughout high school, throughout college. Like that is who I was. I was a party girl. And it was and we're not talking about identity today, but that was who I was. And it was a massive part of my identity. And in reality, what alienated me the most was me being drunk. And that is what caused me to be a freak as an alcoholic, in the lens of being an alcoholic and an addict, because I'm weird and I'm constantly fucking drunk. Nobody wants to be around that shit. And the closest to normalcy I got, I found the closer to society and to conversation and to others' hearts that I was truly getting. But at the same time, if you are here out of a healing journey, out of sober curiosity, it also allotted me the time to sit down and divulge my relationships to serious things like life, which we talk about all the time, and to society, which is part of life. And I had to find where I fit in. And that is a blessing that these are teachings that I carried over from recovery that I got to apply in healing and other aspects of my life that allowed me to fit back in. Sobriety, whether you have an issue or not, is and should be focused around healing, which gives us the time to divulge these super serious things in our lives, like socialization. But just because I had learned the fact that what alienated me was my alcoholism, it didn't mean that I was any like less terrified that I was going to lose everybody and everything. Just because we know truths and we know it might be real doesn't make us unafraid and doesn't make us this courageous version of ourselves. Because when I became the courageous version of myself that decided that I was going to be who I wanted to be, that I was going to choose sobriety, I did it when I shook. And I did it when I was afraid. I didn't do it with this bout of confidence that I know the truth now. I innately choose self-destruction. I innately make the wrong decisions. And that was who I was for a very long time. Luckily now, thanks to healing, I've been able to grow out of some of it, but I had to defy that. And it wasn't as easy as quotes and readings and taking advice from other people, because I honestly didn't want to hear that shit. Every single answer I had to be from within. And that was really important. And it took me a long time to see that. Each time I would get advice, I would get answers. It only worked when I came up with it on my own. And sometimes that took months of knowing what was right, but I eventually had to choose what was right. And when I started to do that, things got courageous for me. And I was able to like start to blossom on my own. But healing, like I said, is all encompassing. And that's what sobriety, I think, should be based around. And I encourage that here, that sobriety is and can be a beautiful thing for you. Is it presented as such? Did I want to stop drinking? No. Did I want to stop using? No, not really, not particularly. But I wanted a beautiful life. And so I chose to make sobriety beautiful for me. Sobriety doesn't just do that for you. Like, there were times where sobriety absolutely fucking sucked for me. There was times where I tried getting sober and it was horrible and I couldn't do it. And it wasn't until I decided what that was going to look like for me. And you can't just place hope in the fact that sobriety is going to make this all beautiful for you. But that gives you opportunity, and that gave me a hope, knowing that if I was going to make sobriety as such, my questions were eventually going to be answered to some degree. And like, I didn't know that, but I had hope in that happening. And that was a trickle effect of things starting to get better in my life, and really big, horrific questions that I had about myself or about life were getting answered slowly. And it was beautiful. And it gave me this pursuit of sobriety in a way that I get to live in now. So I urge you to kind of proceed like that, in this like version of hopeful sobriety, because it does allow you to start to trust the process. Because even though right now you're sitting there and you're like, this is a lonely, terrifying situation, and I'm really scared I'm going to have no friends, I'm going to be lonely, and this life change is going to suck. And it's really easy to focus on the negatives. Don't get me wrong, sister. I understand. It is not the easiest thing to get sober. I sit here and I talk about it like it's easy for me now, but I still even have my days. And I just want it to be a positive place that people can come and see somebody who got sober who absolutely loves it. And that's a blessing. That's not something like, and who's to say, I'm doing this in pursuit, hopefully, of my whole life. And who's to say there won't come a time where I feel that way again, and I have to redo this whole process and basically get sober again without touching a drink, if that makes any sense. Tangent. So I just wanted to start kind of by saying that the best is yet to come in your sobriety and in your socialization. In my early sobriety, obviously I'm more social now. We'll get there. In my early sobriety, I did a couple of things. First of all, I tried to go out. I tried fitting the square continuously back in the circle to continue my social life the same way it was, and it just wasn't going to fucking happen. Like, not only am I not drinking anymore, but I was abusing drugs and alcohol in the same places I was going back, and it just like would leave me in turmoil each time. And we'll also kind of touch on that in a little bit, but the main point I wanted to touch on is that I also isolated directly kind of following that. So like I had different stages with trying to make my life work with sobriety, and it was a whole process, and especially being young and sober, and I really could not go out, and it was the blatant truth. And when I realized that, it was like I was living in this like isolated hermit situation, because it was even hard for me at that time to hang out one-on-one with people. I know, and like I'm not scared to admit that. And it was because I had to realize that every wall that I had put up between me and other people, I had put it up. It was their inability to reach me because I put them at arm's length, not because they did anything wrong, and not because they can't reach me. And I think it created this process of recognizing what true friendship is. And it was this huge ego that I have when I drink, where I need others to serve me. And that revolved around scouring the earth for people to understand me. And that's what I labeled real friendship to be. And how could somebody possibly understand a mentally ill lunatic with drug and alcohol problems? There is no understanding an extremely selfish person like that, yet people still tried to. Again, I don't know how I had friends. And I love everyone. Thank you. But it created a true friendship situation, because I could also see, when I stopped to listen to people, I could see that they had things that I didn't understand too. And that we all have like these little pieces of us that we don't understand, but we don't have to. And we don't have to find the perfect way to convey that and wait for the perfect response from the other person. Like, it's okay that there are just parts of us. And friendship began to look like laughter is what I'm seeking from other people, and love is what I'm seeking from other people. And I eventually had to understand that it was never about them needing to understand me. It was me needing to understand them, or in great attempts to. And that is what truly united me with society, and truly united me later with my friendships. And it was a revelation to understand that each wall that I put up, each box that I put myself in, I built every single one. It was self-alienation. And I think that's so important for us to remember when we feel lonely and alone. And I'm kind of skating into sobriety, to the loneliness that we feel as alcoholic and addicts, and that's not the point today, but I did want to touch on this topic because I think it applies to everybody, because society is always there. Consistent. It's the same. Life keeps revolving. And that was another lesson that I had to learn, that life keeps going in this very certain way that allows me to fit in, that makes it like comfortable and hopeful for me, because like, oh, I jump on the train doesn't jump on me. And like, I can continue to fall off the train and shit and like not make it, but it doesn't matter. The train's going to keep going. Things are forgotten. Things change. People move on. And it was a really hopeful thing for me, not a discouraging thing for me. So where I'm going with that is that I encourage you to assess your relationships with society and with other people and with loneliness. Whether you have a problem or you don't have a problem, sometimes it really just takes some thinking, some journaling, and some really starting to understand how we treat other people and why that matters. And I have episodes and stuff on that, because that is not only about other people and being a better person. That also helps you. And the greatest battle that I ever had in my life leading up to sobriety, and there are great battles of my life that, I continue to turn over, like the confidence, like the purpose in life. Like there are just several things that reoccur, and we all have our own kind of divots with that. But my biggest battle that I thankfully was able to rid myself of was the great feeling of loneliness. I do not feel that at all anymore. Whether I'm alone or whether I'm with people, whatever is happening, I feel connected and I feel united. And that is the most fantastic gift, because I suffered that for so many fucking years. I felt like an alien had dropped me off on the wrong planet, or like I was birthed on the wrong planet. And I'm like, that is genuinely how I felt. I think I've talked about that before, that like, I'm not meant to be here is the issue. And it was this deep, horrible, gut-wrenching feeling that I tried to drink away, that I tried to drown, that I tried to mask to become other people so that maybe I could connect then. And like, it was always a blame on the other people too, which also built fantastic resentment inside myself to literally life and society as a whole, because I felt it was their fault. They couldn't reach me. They're not smart enough. They're not complicated enough. They don't have the same issues. That's arrogant as fuck. And that is why I always emphasize that ego and arrogance is so important also in a broken system, in a broken heart and a broken mind, because that is ego. Whether I was fucked up, whether I was literally demolished emotionally, it doesn't matter. Just because I'm hurting and broken doesn't mean that I'm not going to turn around and hurt other people, and that didn't even matter to me back then. Or the fact that it was my own ego the whole time and my own pride. And flipping that is like so healing. So anyways, now we're going to dive more into actually what sobriety kind of looks like now, and the genuine loneliness factor of being young and feeling like you're going to lose your friends and stuff. And I will first say that if you feel that you need alcohol to like be enough or to fit in, it is not going to change who you are as a person, and it's never going to work. I know I kept choosing that false version of myself, that drunk version, this facade that I had created. And I still existed in there. I wasn't completely empty in terms of representing myself as who I was, right? But who I was fucking a lunatic. Like, if you know me, you know. Like, if you knew me back in the day, you know. Like, lunatic. Bitch is crazy, honestly. Like, wild child to the max. And so, like, part of me obviously existed in that. But at the same time, I was chasing this other version of myself. And this party girlfriend that I had put on, that's who I was. And so, like, take it from me that you can only fix yourself internally, and that alcohol is not going to fix you. And I think if you feel panicked at even the thought of going out and being sober, hanging out with people and being sober, whatever it is, I encourage you to assess that. And me constantly saying, I encourage you to assess that. Like, what am I, a fucking professor? In pursuit of either sobriety or healing. It is exhausting trying to chameleon and just not being yourself, because that is what you were doing when you were going out and you're drinking to lubricate a situation. Yes, I understand we're humans, and like to a normal person, that lubrication is okay. Like, you know, like it's no big deal. We all have like little weird social things at the same time. Like, we're actually animals. But I do think it's this false confidence, this false identity of self. We're going out to be somebody else, and it's like, it's exhausting. It's not worth it. And I think me finding confidence in who I was and knowing who I was more fun than like any validation I have ever received in my entire life. And that is coming from somebody that a few weeks ago we learned was a fucking people pleaser. And when you really think about it, it's like, then why are we going out? It boils down to getting validation at that point. And you know, I'm not sitting here trying to be the fun police. I'm sitting here for people who need healing maybe. And maybe girls who struggle with confidence in that way, because you were putting on makeup and stuff and you're going out and then putting on a fake jacket of who you are, trying to be enough for them, whether that's where you're going to find boys or whether that's where you're going to have fun, socialize, whatever the situation is. So we're going to move into kind of another isolation piece of me where I thought I was going to lose everybody, like I've said for the 6th time. And my friends were fucking there. And I know this to be true for yourself too, because we don't give people enough credit. I did not give my friends enough credit. I figured that everybody was going to say, fuck me, and that was it. And I think that has a lot to do with how I felt about myself, reflecting in other people, and I was projecting a lot of my own emotions, because how could anybody love me? Like, is how I walked around feeling. How could literally anybody ever fucking love me? That makes me kind of sad that I felt so deeply like that. I think in friendships too, us girls have these like, they haven't talked to me in a few weeks. The phone goes both ways. And like, we keep these intense tabs. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Like these tabs on who shows up when. We kind of have ourselves fooled, because in reality, when it boils down, that doesn't have that much of a leg to stand on. We don't stop being friends with that person, because we do know internally that it's really who was there for me when I was down, who had my back when I was down, who knows my heart, who loves me. And we can't deny that love. That type of love surpasses all of these weird pressures that we put on our relationships. And I do think that it's obviously a very real thing, but I think, like, obviously if people aren't reaching out to you and like they're not there for you and stuff, it's a completely different situation. But at the same time, that kind of had me stuck, because I felt this obligation that I had to continue to reach out to people. And this goes for people with depression and anxiety too. People who just need some fucking space and who can't breathe. And it was this pressure that like, I'm not reaching out to people and like, I'm just going to lose everybody. And like, I almost had to accept that, because like I had no way of expressing myself at that point, and or even like exploring the verbiage on how to tell people that, because that's so hard, right? Like, and I knew this at this point. I was starting to understand that I had to understand other people and I had to fit into life, and was starting to process my ego a little bit. And like, I didn't want to go and tell people like I can't be around anyone right now. And I didn't. I never spoke to anybody that deeply about any of my close friends that remain my close friends today, who I see all the time today. I didn't tell them that, and I didn't verbalize any of my emotions. Even my sister, I wasn't saying a ton. Like my family, it was like nobody. And I was just trying to fucking stay sober. And I think everybody's route for that looks different. I'm obviously talking about this from the lens of somebody who had a serious drug and alcohol problem, and really started from ground zero, like a baby learning to walk when I got sober. And it's different for everybody. Not everybody is that intense. I know people who get sober and do it for health reasons rather than like an addiction issue, and continue to socialize normally and like go out. But like, I have mental disorders. So like, that is the piece that I'm talking to you from. Anyways, that being said, the pressures that I have put on myself about that, I'm not answering them. I'm not there. I'm not reaching out to anybody. The phone works both ways, and I'm not reaching out to a fucking soul. And let me tell you, that fear and that anxiety that I had that went along with that was so fucking stupid. And I didn't need to reach out and say anything, because those girls loved me the whole time. And they watched me from afar and they applauded me. And people truly want what's best for you. And that is a really important thing that I wish that I would understand, because I think it would have saved me a lot of time and a lot of fights that I had with myself, just fights with myself in general. They were there for me. And I still can't believe that I was given this much grace. And I think it's important to remember too, and one of the really cool things about sobriety today is that people are affected by it, whether it's themselves or people in their lives, or they've seen it, or the fact that like we have advocates everywhere for all types of different subjects, and things are very well-roundedly respected. And sobriety is extremely respected across the board, like in our generation and stuff today. And when people see you suffering with something like that, like they are there for you, and they want you to be the best version of yourself. And it is really cool that I got that opportunity to be loved through that. And I'm really grateful that sobriety is kind of more forefront in the generation now, because that's what gave me that. And it's important to remember that you can't vocalize, you can't save every relationship, you can't do everything, but people in general respect that shit, and they respect mental health. I think I was beginning to understand that just because I write people off so quickly doesn't mean that they write me off so quickly. And other people don't operate in this strange and insane way that I operate. And another saying that just didn't click for me is people, what what goes always comes back. What's meant for you comes back. Fuck that. Like, I did not like, at this time, like, I was not flowing with life like that. Like, it just wasn't, I couldn't trust any sort of process or anything like that. So people saying, like, who's meant to be friends with you will stay. And, like, to some degree, I understood what they were saying. But it didn't feel like a realistic approach to my socialization as a young person. And, like, it is okay to be afraid of your socialization disappearing. We need that. And, like, humans are animals. Here I go again. Whether it's a different type of animal or not, that is something that we need to live. Socialization. It's who we are as humans. And to feel threatened by the possibility of that disappearing or even transforming and not being able to trust what comes next is a real emotion to feel. And I want you to feel okay in that. I don't want you to feel less than because you give a shit what other people think. Or because you give a shit what your friends think. Pardon me. Arrest me. Like, damn. And, like, of course, I hit a place in my life where I have both, where I care what other people think, but at the same time, like, I can give a big fuck you. And we talked about sobriety gave that to me too. Like, yeah, like, self-protection, protect my peace, but at the same time, I can give a fuck about things. And it's not like, I'm not less than, I'm not weird because of that. So I think I couldn't trust this people fall off and you're going to lose people. Yeah, I better not. That's the point. The fuck? And, like, we want to just pretend that we trust these things people are telling us. And I think it worked for me in my sobriety because I questioned things like that. Because I was like, wait, but I don't feel that way. Wait, like, hold on, I'm not trusting the process. Like, just because you said that and just because, like, I'm supposed to accept it, I don't. And so, anyways, this gave me the first kind of taste of trusting the process because I didn't lift a fucking finger. I didn't do anything. I didn't vocalize. I didn't put boundaries on myself. I did none of that shit. Like, honestly, if I'm being so for real, I was just trying to make it through sober day by day. That is all I was doing. And these boundaries were, like, building itself around me. Like, and that's because when you start to respect yourself in that way, you don't have to verbalize it. Other people can see that. And when you have protection and peace kind of like starting to form around you naturally out of what you're doing with your life, people see that and they respect that. And I have touched on this, I think, this topic a little bit before where, like, I just didn't write people off. I didn't have conversations with people. I didn't say you're no good for me. Baby, you're no good for me. Shout out Lana Del Rey. And I should have. That doesn't mean you should go do that. I'm just illustrating to you that the way the process carried me. It wasn't this, I didn't have a moment where I trust the process and that clicked and that was a decision I made to move forward. The only decision I made, again, I'm restating myself, was to stay sober every day, and the process like caught me like a wave. And like I was able to continue through that on just the day by day, trusting that I have to remain sober and that's all I can fucking do. And again, my sobriety is based in healing. So what happens? What follows me? Good. And I propel forward in this process because that's not like, I don't know how else to illustrate trusting the process to somebody who literally can't. That was not something that I was equipped for at that time. And it was in reality, my sobriety had nothing to do with the rest of the world. And I was so caught up on the fact that my world was going to break. And it's like this tiny detail that Maddie is sober. It's not like this great detail of my life that separates me from society and from everything else the way I thought. It's like Maddie is sober. Big whoop. So if you are looking to change your life, maybe not in pursuit of the fact that you have a disease, if you don't, maybe just in pursuit of like saving money, of career, of fitness goals, of you just want a new life. And when you close your eyes and picture it, you're like, okay, I'm going to wake up tomorrow. I'm going to eat this. I'm going to drink this jug of water. I'm going to do these things that are good for me. I'm going to get creative and choose something that I love. But you can't seem to make that happen. I want to be representation for you that sobriety is what provided me that bubble, right? Where like it only matters what I do every day versus it matters what everybody else is going to think about me and what happens next. And that's what kind of gave me courage to step out. And that each day I was saving money suddenly, and I was choosing what was health conscious for me. And those little things added up. But sobriety gave me that bubble. And I think what I'm trying to illustrate that as is in terms of like, my socialization is still a huge part of who I am. Girlhood is still a huge part of who I am. But I live in this bubble where what kind of matters to me on a day-to-day basis is what I closed my eyes and pictured before, is who I thought I was. It's nature, it's fitness, it's sports, it's adventure, it's free will, right? That like I am actually choosing what I want to do every day. Also, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that socialization and sobriety was the easiest thing ever. It was extremely difficult, as I illustrated before. And I'm not saying that to discourage you, but like I'm being realistic. Things are going to change. So as stated before, I would try to go out over and over, and it literally sucked the life out of me, and it was torture. And I think that was me doing my own research and my own math to see how far I could push those limits while still remaining sober. And as somebody with a drug and alcohol problem, the answer is you can't push the limits at all. Simply, that's how it is. But if you're here to ensue other things, I think it's about seeing, do you even like fucking going out? But I had to make life and sobriety something that I wanted. I had to make life good for me, and I had to make society and socialization work for me. But going out sucks, because if you really think about it, it's all of us in our head. We're kind of planning, how am I going to make this fun? Which drugs and alcohol am I going to use today to make this fun? Or if you're sober, you're pre-planning essentially how to make it fun. That's what you're doing. How am I going to be enough for this? And how am I going to make this fun? And I talked about it before. It's this like whole fake thing where we want to be this like fun person. And like, what if we're fucking not? And that's okay. And like, what if we're not having fun though? And that's like an okay thing for me to admit. And I had to learn to be okay with that, because that is not friendship, and that is not socialization. And maybe that's coming from somebody with a problem that thought that like society or my socialization personally in general was basically going out. And that is like not what it is. And I had to flip it and make it work for me. Because if we really think about like the definition of socialization, should I be one of those people? I'm gonna be one of those people. It's the lifelong process of learning the norms, values, behaviors, and social skills necessary to function within a society or group. Did you hear going out in that at all? Did you hear day drinking in that at all? No, you didn't. And that is because, too, I started to date myself. As you all know, I've discussed this before. I loved dating myself. I was in a relationship, and I would say I'm not on the market. I would say that. That was the exact verbiage that I used, girl. And I had the time of my life. And I had to understand that me going out in society, even alone, was socialization. That's what it was. And I had overcomplicated it to look like going out and to look like something that it's not. And I had to accept being the daytime friend. Being the daytime friend is socialization. That's what it is. And again, I don't know if this is obvious to other people, and I struggle with this because I have a problem. But it was hard to accept that I was also the friend that was going to say no. And that my other friends do that. That Maddie's not going to say yes. And we're not going to invite Maddie to certain things. And I had to accept that that was okay. That's who I was now. And that people who love you, they go out on a whim to see you. Just like they went out on a whim to understand me from a distance, even though no one asked them to fucking do that. And I didn't tell them I wasn't going to speak to them anymore. Same thing. And I think now, obviously, I would go back and I would communicate different things to people. And, I got a chance to kind of go back and emphasize with those people that I loved them through it all and that I was really struggling. And they're like, save your breath, we know. But again, I restate that when you respect yourself, other people respect you. And it is loud. Without saying a word, that shit is loud. And people will respect you for that. So yeah, there's a lot of shit I don't get invited to, but it's out of respect and out of love. And I had to strip away this fear of like, nobody's going to talk to me anymore, that I might not get invited to shit. Like, it's bullshit. And I'm okay. I had to be okay with the role of the friend that says no and the daytime friend. You just have to accept that role as who you are, because what you are granted in return of that is so much bigger, so much better. There will come a time in your life where you have to face who you are. And if you don't do it yourself, life is going to do it to you. And it's like, why not provide ourselves with this opportunity to do it young and while we get to adventure and have fun? And that's what I did for myself. That's what sobriety did for me, was allow me to see who I really am, and date myself and say no to this huge, complicated life of socialization I thought I had known. And that was scary. I was scared to jump. And again, that was something I did with my knees shaking. I did with anxiety in my heart because I was scared that I was going to lose everything. And I didn't have to have the strength or the courage. And that is another thing that I like to emphasize with sobriety, is that you don't have to have the strength. You don't have to have the courage. You just have to attempt to do it. And everything like works out for you. And we want to do this massive planning and pre-planning in our head. And it's just not the way that life has to work, because you get there and everything's fine magically. And that's when I started to see that over and over again, was when I got comfortable, a lot more comfortable in my sobriety. So you're not always going to be able to fill yourself with this false joy, false validation, and false comfort. It's not going to work for the rest of your life. And I had to understand that there was so much more meaning to life than flashing lights and like these empty conversations. And I can be so very fulfilled and social outside of my life. I'm not giving up basically what I think I'm giving up in pursuit of everything else. So I think like my number one tip out of all of this, out of everything that I've said today, is to not overcomplicate your socialization and sobriety and loneliness. I think it's so much more important day by day, making it through how life is going to look beautiful for you, not focusing on what you're going to be missing. Because I won't lie to you, yes, it was difficult, but I found my way into this place in my life where I truly enjoy it. And I have confidence in who I am, and I can be alone anywhere now. So my camera's going to die. I have more to say, but that's all I'm going to say. So I love you, and I hope you have a great week. Bye.